try to find a 350cc or smaller street bike today, like the Yamaha R5 twin, and you'll discover the pickins are slim. Honda has only one, the 234cc Nighthawk Kawasaki 2, the 124cc Eliminator 125, and the 249cc Ninja 250R, Suzuki 2, the 249cc retro-style TU 250X, and cruiser-style GZ 250. And Yamaha Ignoring the 249cc V-twin cruiser in its new Star motorcycle line. You won't find a single 350cc or smaller machine carrying the tuning fork logo. That wasn't the case back in the early 1970s, when small bore bikes still ruled, and the so-called 21-inchers were among the hottest contenders for the motorcyclist dollar. Besides a smorgasbord of small bore bikes from Italy, England, and Germany, there was a full plate of small bikes available from Japan, including Yamaha. By 1970, Yamaha had emerged as one of the leading Japanese motorcycle makers, behind Honda, but ahead of Kawasaki and Suzuki. While Honda continued to embrace the four-stroke ideal, Yamaha, like its other rising sun rivals, was still putting most of its faith in two-stroke technology. Despite the introduction of its first-ever four-stroke, the 650cc parallel twin Yamaha XS1, Yamaha wasn't about to walk away from its two-stroke twins and singles, which had brought Yamaha success in the consumer marketplace and on the track. And Yamaha knew there was still a lot of performance and dollars to wring out of its smaller bikes. Yamaha had introduced its first big two-stroke, the 305cc Big Bear, in 1966. That was followed a year later with the all-new YR1 Grand Prix, whose short-stroke 348cc twin benefited heavily from lessons learned on the track. And finally, in 1970, the YR5, or the Yamaha R5 as it was known in the States. The Yamaha R5 was in many respects the crown jewel of Yamaha's continuing two-stroke program. While it put out the same 36 horsepower as the previous year's twin, an increase in torque and other refinements meant it easily boasted the best performance of any two-stroke Yamaha had ever made. Where previous Yamaha two-stroke twins had been very peaky with a narrow power band, ushering in a rush of acceleration at high revs, but leaving engine response flat at lower engine speeds, the R5 could deliver usable power from as low as 3,000 revolutions per minute, with peak torque of 28 pound-feet, developed at 6,500 revolutions per minute. For the average rider, this was a huge improvement. Gone were the days of having to rev the engine to a scream before slipping the clutch to achieve any sort of smooth, low-speed takeoff, or to pull cleanly once on the move. The R5 pulls like a 500 when you twist the grip in fifth, said Cycle World, in appreciation of the R5's low-speed engine performance. Yet, with the throttle cracked wide open, it would run as fast as bikes twice its size, get the revs up over 4 grand, and the R5 became a different machine, and it produced performance numbers to prove it, consistently running the quarter mile in the low 14-second range. That was on a par with Triumph's 650cc 4-stroke T120, then a benchmark for performance. Yamaha also applied lessons learned on the track to the R5's duplex cradle frame, which drew its basic design from Yamaha's successful TR2 race bike. Strong and rigid, it was far less prone to flexing than previous frames, resulting in the best handling Yamaha road bike ever, and a machine the editors of Cycle Guide considered a real contender for those interested in production class racing. The chassis is absolutely rock steady. So much so that the rider gets a distinct impression that the wheels are running in a slot. Although no featherweight, at 322 pounds dry, it was hardly a porker. And with a relatively short 52/8-inch wheelbase, it was a pretty good wheelie machine. So much so the folks at Cycle World found themselves wishing Yamaha would stretch the bike out a bit to help keep the front end on the ground. Shortness, coupled with the strong power range, had us leaning forward to keep the front end down during hard acceleration. Although electric starters were fast becoming de rigueur, Yamaha, perhaps to bolster the R5 performance image, went with kickstart only. Testers hardly complained and in fact asserted that an electric starter would be wasted on the R5, given its propensity to fire easily and immediately, first time every time, regardless of conditions. Power was routed through a slick shifting 5-speed transmission, universally praised for short, precise shift throws, while a twin leading shoe drum brake up front and single leading shoe drum in back pulled the R5 to a stop. Although a few early tests cited poor feel and performance from the front brake, Modern Cycle loved it, saying the front brake will collapse the front forks and all but smoke the front tire under hard use. Yamaha wisely changed little on the R5350 during its 3-year production. With the exception of a larger taillight for 1971 and different color options, the 1972 R5 was the same as the 1970 model. As fast as the market was changing, Yamaha still appreciated the value of continuity. Although many collectors will tell you the later Yamaha RD 350 and RD 400 are the Yamaha two-strokes of choice, it's hard to find fault with the R5. True, body parts are getting hard to find, but growing interest in the model coupled with a surprisingly high survivorship mean you can usually find whatever parts you need to keep your 21-incher on the road. When Honda introduced the new for 1968 Honda CB350 at its annual dealer convention, every single dealer stood up and applauded. And not just because they liked how it looked, they could see instantly that this was a bike that would make them money, and lots of it. The CB350 was a truly modern machine. Instead of the ring-dingy and smoky two-stroke found in most small bikes, the 350 had a positively exquisite OHC 4-stroke twin that redlined at an incredible 10,500 revolutions per minute, and it would do so willingly, yet would pull happily almost from idle. The CB350 provided cheap but sophisticated power for the masses, and buyers flocked to Honda dealers. Over a 6-year production run, more than 300,000 CB350 rolled out of Honda dealerships and onto the highways and byways of the US, making the 350 without question the most popular motorcycle of its time. Outside of the expected yearly color options, Honda changed little on the 350. Transmission gear ratios were subtly altered for 1972, with wider and more even spacing between gears, and the redline was brought down to 9,200 revolutions per minute. A belated recognition of the fact that many riders were routinely over-revving the twin. A disc front brake came in 1973. But otherwise, Honda left the 350 alone. Still cheap, but rising steadily in value. It's one of the great bikes of all time.